The morning sun cast long shadows across the marble floors of Grandview Shopping Center, one of the city's most exclusive retail destinations. Elena Martinez walked quietly through the designer boutiques, her simple jeans and white cotton shirt making her blend into the background. She carried a small leather purse and wore comfortable sneakers, looking like any ordinary woman running weekend errands. What the other shoppers didn't know was that Elena owned a chain of successful tech companies worth billions. She preferred to live simply despite her incredible wealth. Her husband, David Chen, was the CEO of Chen Industries, a global technology empire. Together, they were one of the most powerful couples in the business world. But Elena chose to keep a low profile. At 34 years old, Elena had learned that money couldn't buy happiness, but it could certainly attract the wrong kind of attention. She enjoyed these peaceful Saturday mornings when she could shop without bodyguards or assistants following her around. It was her small taste of normal life. As she browsed through a bookstore, Elena noticed a commotion near the jewelry section. A woman's voice was getting louder and more demanding. Elena glanced over and saw a tall woman with perfectly styled blonde hair, wearing an expensive red dress and diamond jewelry. The woman was clearly upset about something. "This is absolutely unacceptable," the blonde woman shouted at a young sales clerk. "Do you have any idea who I am? I am Victoria Ashworth, and my husband owns 3 hotels in this city." The sales clerk, a girl who couldn't be more than 20, was trembling as she tried to explain store policy. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but we can't accept returns without a receipt after 30 days. It's clearly posted on our return policy." Victoria's face turned red with anger. "I don't care about your stupid policy. This necklace cost $5,000 and I want my money back right now. Get me your manager immediately." Elena watched from a distance, feeling sorry for the young employee. She had seen this type of behavior before. Wealthy people who thought money gave them the right to treat others badly. It always bothered her when people used their status to bully service workers. The store manager, a middle-aged man in a neat suit, approached cautiously. "Mrs. Ashworth, I understand your frustration, but our policy applies to all customers equally. Without a receipt and past our return window, there's nothing we can do." Victoria's voice rose even higher. "This is ridiculous. Do you know how much money I spend in this mall? I could have you all fired with one phone call." Other customers were starting to stare and whisper. Some pulled out their phones, probably recording the scene. Elena felt embarrassed for everyone involved. She decided to quietly leave and find a different store to continue her shopping. As she walked past the jewelry store, Elena accidentally bumped into a display table. A small decorative vase wobbled and fell, making a loud crash as it hit the floor. The sound echoed through the store and everyone turned to look at her. "Oh no, I'm so sorry," Elena said, immediately kneeling down to pick up the broken pieces. Her face turned red with embarrassment. "I'll pay for this, of course. I'm really sorry." The store manager rushed over, looking stressed. "Please don't worry about it, miss. These things happen. Just be careful of the sharp pieces." But Victoria Ashworth had found a new target for her anger. She marched over to Elena, her high heels clicking loudly on the marble floor. "Look what you've done. Some people have no class at all, walking around here like you belong in a place like this." Elena looked up from the broken vase, confused by the hostile tone. "I said I was sorry. I'll pay for the damage. Pay for it." Victoria laughed coldly. "Look at you. With those cheap clothes and that old purse, you probably can't even afford to shop here. You're just making things worse for everyone." The store fell completely silent. Even the young sales clerk stopped sniffling to watch what was happening. Elena stood up slowly, her hands full of broken ceramic pieces. She was shocked by the woman's rudeness but tried to stay calm. "I understand you're upset," Elena said quietly, "but there's no need to be mean about an accident." Victoria's eyes narrowed. "Don't tell me what I need to do. People like you shouldn't even be allowed in stores like this. You're bringing down the whole atmosphere." Elena felt her cheeks burning with humiliation. She had dealt with difficult people in business, but this personal attack in public was different. She could feel dozens of eyes watching her, some people still recording with their phones. The store manager tried to step in. "Ladies, perhaps we could all just calm down and stay out of this," Victoria snapped at him. Then she turned back to Elena. "I'm talking to this clumsy girl who doesn't know her place." Elena took a deep breath, trying to control her emotions. She had learned in business that sometimes the best response to aggression was patience. "I've apologized for the accident. I've offered to pay for the damage. I'm not sure what else you want from me. What I want, Victoria said, stepping closer with a cruel smile, is for you to learn some respect for your betters. The tension in the jewelry store was thick enough to cut with a knife. Elena stood frozen, still holding pieces of broken ceramic as Victoria Ashworth's cruel words hung in the air. The blonde woman's eyes were filled with a kind of vicious satisfaction that Elena had never seen before. Your betters? Elena repeated softly, genuinely confused by the statement. She had never thought of people in terms of social hierarchy. To her, everyone deserved basic respect regardless of their bank account. Victoria smiled coldly and took another step forward. That's right. Some of us actually belong in places like this. We're the kind of people who keep these businesses running with our money. And then there are people like you who come in here and break things and cause problems. The young sales clerk was watching with wide eyes, clearly terrified that the situation was getting worse. The store manager looked like he wanted to intervene but wasn't sure how to handle a customer as influential as Victoria Ashworth. Elena carefully placed the broken pieces on a nearby counter and faced Victoria directly. I'm not trying to cause problems for anyone. I made a mistake, I apologized, and I offered to fix it. I don't understand why you're so angry with me. Because people like you don't understand boundaries, Victoria said, her voice getting louder again. You think you can just walk into any place and act like you own it. Well, newsflash, not everyone is equal. Some of us have worked hard to earn our position in society. Several customers had stopped pretending to shop and were openly staring at the confrontation. Elena noticed a teenage girl recording everything on her phone from behind a display case. She felt a wave of anxiety about becoming an internet sensation for all the wrong reasons. I respect that you've worked hard, Elena said, trying to keep her voice steady. But I don't think that gives anyone the right to treat other people badly. Victoria's face twisted with anger. Don't you dare lecture me about how to treat people. You have no idea what I've accomplished or what I've been through. I've earned every dollar my family has, and I've earned the right to expect proper service and respect. Elena felt a familiar sadness wash over her. She had seen this attitude before in business meetings and social events. Some wealthy people seemed to think money was a measure of human worth. It was one of the reasons she preferred to keep her own wealth private. Money doesn't make someone better than anyone else, Elena said quietly. We're all just people trying to get through our day. The wrong thing to say. Victoria's eyes flashed with pure rage. How dare you? She screamed. You insignificant little nobody. You break expensive property. You argue with your betters, and now you want to give me life lessons? I've had enough of your disrespect. Before anyone could react, Victoria raised her hand and slapped Elena hard across the face. The sound echoed through the store like a gunshot. Elena's head snapped to the side and she stumbled backward, her hand flying to her stinging cheek. The entire store fell into shocked silence. Even Victoria seemed surprised by her own actions, her hand still raised in the air. The teenage girl with the phone gasped audibly, making sure she had captured everything. Elena stood there for a moment, her cheek burning and her eyes watering from the impact. She had never been slapped by a stranger before. The humiliation was almost worse than the physical pain. Dozens of people had just watched her get struck in public like a disobedient child. The store manager finally found his voice. Mrs. Ashworth, that is completely unacceptable. You cannot assault customers in my store. But Victoria was already stepping back, her anger replaced by a kind of triumphant satisfaction. Maybe that will teach her some manners. Some people only understand force. Elena touched her cheek gingerly, feeling the heat radiating from where Victoria's hand had connected. Her eyes were watering, but she was determined not to cry in front of all these strangers. She had survived hostile corporate takeovers and brutal business negotiations. She wouldn't let this cruel woman break her in a shopping mall. You had no right to do that, Elena said, her voice shaking slightly but clear. Victoria shrugged, already seeming bored with the confrontation. I have every right to defend myself against disrespectful behavior. Maybe next time you'll think twice before talking back to someone who's actually important. The young sales clerk had tears in her eyes as she watched Elena struggle to maintain her composure. Several other customers were whispering among themselves, some looking sympathetic and others just excited to witness drama. Elena looked around at all the watching faces and felt a deep shame that had nothing to do with anything she had done wrong. This was what happened when people thought money made them superior to others. This was what happened when wealth became a weapon instead of a responsibility. She straightened her shoulders and looked directly at Victoria. "I hope you're proud of yourself," she said quietly. Victoria laughed. "Actually, yes, I am. It's about time someone put you in your place." Elena nodded slowly and walked toward the store exit, her cheeks still throbbing. Behind her, she could hear Victoria turning her attention back to the store manager, demanding again that they process her return despite their policies. As Elena stepped out into the mall corridor, she realized that Victoria Ashworth had just made the biggest mistake of her life. She just didn't know it yet. Elena walked quickly through the mall corridor, her face still burning from the slap and the humiliation. She could feel people staring as she passed, and she wondered if anyone had recognized her from business magazines or news articles. The last thing she wanted was for this incident to become public knowledge before she had time to process what had happened. She found a quiet corner near the food court and sat down on a bench, finally allowing herself to take some deep breaths. Her hand moved instinctively to her cheek, which was still tender and probably showing a red mark. She pulled out her phone and called the one person who would understand exactly how she was feeling. "David, it's me," she said when her husband answered on the first ring. "Elena, you sound upset. What's wrong?" David Chen's voice immediately shifted to concern. After 8 years of marriage, he could read her emotions even through the phone. "I'm at Grandview Mall and something really strange just happened. A woman slapped me in front of dozens of people." Elena tried to keep her voice steady, but she could hear it trembling slightly. There was a long pause on the other end. When David spoke again, his voice was dangerously quiet. "Someone hit you. Are you hurt? Do you need me to come get you?" "I'm okay physically," Elena said. "But David, it was so humiliating." She kept saying I didn't belong in the store, that I should know my place. She acted like I was some kind of inferior person who had no right to be shopping there. Elena could hear David moving around, probably already reaching for his car keys. "What's this woman's name?" "Did anyone see what happened?" "Her name is Victoria Ashworth. She said her husband owns hotels in the city. And yes, lots of people saw it. Some were recording on their phones." Elena closed her eyes, dreading what might already be spreading on social media. "Victoria Ashworth," David repeated, and Elena could hear him typing on his phone. "Elena, I need you to listen to me carefully. This woman just made a very serious mistake. I want you to go home, and I want you to document everything that happened. Write down every detail while it's still fresh. David, I don't want this to become a big legal thing. I just want to forget it happened and move on." "Sweetheart," David said gently, "you can't just let people assault you in public and walk away. But more than that, this woman attacked you because she thought you were powerless. She thought she could treat you badly because she assumed you couldn't fight back." Elena understood what he wasn't saying directly. Victoria Ashworth had no idea who she had just slapped. She had attacked the wife of one of the most powerful business leaders in the country, thinking she was bullying someone with no resources or connections. "I know what you're thinking," Elena said, "but I don't want to use our position to hurt someone, even someone who hurt me first." "This isn't about revenge, Elena. This is about accountability. People like Victoria Ashworth do this because they think they'll never face consequences. Today she slapped you. Tomorrow it might be that young sales clerk who can't defend herself." Elena thought about the terrified girl in the jewelry store and felt a surge of protective anger. David was right. Victoria's behavior wasn't just about one bad moment. It was a pattern of treating service workers and anyone she considered beneath her with cruelty and disrespect. "What are you going to do?" Elena asked. "First, I'm going to make sure you're safe and that your face is okay. Then I'm going to do some research on Mrs. Ashworth and her husband's business interests. I have a feeling this story is going to be very interesting once all the facts come out." Elena walked toward the mall exit, still feeling shaky but starting to feel something else too. A sense that maybe Victoria Ashworth was about to learn an important lesson about treating people with respect. "David, promise me something. Whatever we do about this, we do it the right way. I don't want to become the kind of people who use power to crush others even if they hurt us first." "I promise," David said. But Elena, sometimes doing the right thing and protecting yourself happened to be the same thing. This woman needs to face consequences, not just for what she did to you, but for what she's probably doing to other people who can't fight back. As Elena reached her car, she realized that Victoria Ashworth's day was about to get much more complicated. The blonde woman was probably still in the jewelry store, feeling proud of herself for putting an uppity stranger in her place. She had no idea that her victim was about to go home to one of the most powerful men in the business world. Elena started her car and headed home, her mind already working through the implications of what had happened. She thought about the young sales clerk's frightened face and Victoria's cruel satisfaction. Some lessons, Elena realized, could only be learned the hard way. Victoria Ashworth was about to get an education in the consequences of judging people by their appearance and treating others with cruelty. She just didn't know it yet. Elena pulled into her driveway, looking up at the modest home she and David had chosen despite being able to afford a mansion. They had always believed that true wealth came from how you treated people, not from how much money you had in the bank. Today, Victoria Ashworth was going to learn the difference between the two. David Chen arrived home within 30 minutes, his face dark with controlled anger. Elena was sitting at their kitchen table with a bag of frozen peas pressed against her cheek when she heard his car in the driveway. Through the window, she could see him talking rapidly on his phone as he walked toward the house. "Let me see," David said immediately, gently moving the frozen bag away from Elena's face. A clear red handprint was visible on her left cheek, and her eye was slightly swollen. His jaw tightened as he examined the mark. "It looks worse than it feels," Elena said, though that wasn't entirely true. The physical pain was nothing compared to the emotional humiliation she still felt. David took photos of her face with his phone, being careful to capture the injury clearly. "I've already spoken with our lawyer and our head of security. They're both on their way over." "David, I told you I don't want this to become a huge legal battle." "Elena, look at me." David sat down beside her and took her hands. "This woman didn't just slap you. She assaulted you in public because she thought you were someone who couldn't fight back. That's not just wrong, it's a pattern of behavior that needs to stop." Elena sighed, knowing her husband was right, but still feeling uncomfortable about using their resources against someone who didn't even know who they were. "What did you find out about her?" David pulled out his laptop and showed Elena a series of online articles and business records. Victoria Ashworth is married to Robert Ashworth, who owns 3 mid-level hotels in the city. Their business is struggling. They're behind on loan payments and have had several lawsuits from employees claiming workplace harassment and unpaid wages. Elena scrolled through the information, seeing a pattern of financial problems and legal troubles, so she's taking her stress out on innocent people. "It gets worse," David continued. "I found social media posts from service workers at restaurants and stores around the city. Victoria Ashworth has a reputation for being abusive to waiters, sales clerks, and anyone she considers beneath her. There are dozens of complaints about her behavior." Elena felt sick reading the posts. Victoria had apparently made a hobby out of humiliating service workers, often threatening to have them fired or demanding free products and services. She used her husband's modest wealth like a weapon against people who couldn't defend themselves. "Here's the most interesting part," David said, pulling up another document. "Robert Ashworth's hotels have been trying to get contracts with Chen Industries for the past 2 years. They want us to book rooms for our business travelers and events." Elena's eyes widened. Victoria Ashworth had slapped the wife of the CEO she had been trying to do business with for years. She had no idea that her victim was married to the man who could make or break her husband's struggling hotel business. "David, promise me we won't use business as revenge. I don't want to punish her husband for something she did." "I'm not talking about revenge, Elena. I'm talking about accountability. Victoria Ashworth assaulted you because she thought she could get away with it. She needs to learn that actions have consequences, regardless of someone's social status." The doorbell rang and David went to answer it. Elena heard him talking to their lawyer and security chief in low voices. When they came into the kitchen, both men looked serious and professional. "Mrs. Chen," their lawyer James Morrison said gently, "I'm sorry this happened to you. We're going to make sure it's handled properly." The security chief, Maria Santos, sat down across from Elena. "We've already obtained the security footage from the mall and copies of the cell phone videos that people posted online. The evidence is very clear about what happened." Elena was surprised. "It's already online?" Maria nodded and showed Elena her phone. The slapping incident was already viral on several social media platforms, with thousands of views and hundreds of angry comments. Most people were outraged by Victoria's behavior and sympathetic to Elena. "The good news is that public opinion is completely on your side," Maria said. "Victoria Ashworth is being universally condemned for her actions. The bad news is that your face is now all over the internet." Elena groaned, realizing that her private life was about to become very public. She had worked hard to stay out of the spotlight, preferring to let David be the public face of their business empire. "There's something else," James said carefully. "We received a call from Victoria Ashworth's lawyer about an hour ago. Apparently someone recognized you from the videos and told the Ashworths exactly who you are." Elena and David exchanged glances. How did she react? According to her lawyer, she's having what could politely be called a panic attack. She's now claiming it was all a misunderstanding and wants to apologize personally. David laughed coldly. "I bet she does. 12 hours ago, Elena was just some nobody she could slap with impunity. Now she realizes she attacked the wife of someone who could destroy her husband's business with a single phone call." "What do they want?" Elena asked. James consulted his notes. "They're requesting a private meeting to discuss the situation. They're willing to pay for medical expenses, therapy, and what they call reasonable compensation for the incident." Elena thought about the terrified young sales clerk and all the service workers who had posted about Victoria's abuse online. This woman had been terrorizing innocent people for years, secure in the knowledge that her husband's money protected her from consequences. "Set up the meeting," Elena said quietly, "but not because I want their money. Victoria Ashworth is going to learn that treating people badly has consequences, regardless of how much money you have." David smiled proudly at his wife. "What did you have in mind?" Elena looked at the photos of her bruised face and thought about all the people Victoria had humiliated over the years. "I'm going to give her a choice. She can face the legal consequences of assaulting me, or she can make this right in a way that actually helps the people she's been hurting." The room fell silent as everyone realized that Victoria Ashworth's real punishment was just beginning. She had slapped the wrong person, and now she was going to learn a lesson about respect that she would never forget. The meeting was arranged for Wednesday afternoon at the law offices of Morrison, Blake and Associates. Elena had spent 3 days thinking about exactly what she wanted to say to Victoria Ashworth. The bruise on her face had faded to a yellowish mark, but the videos of the incident had been viewed millions of times across social media platforms. Elena arrived at the law office wearing a simple navy blue dress and minimal jewelry, wanting to look professional but not intimidating. She found Victoria Ashworth already seated in the conference room, looking nothing like the confident woman who had slapped her 4 days earlier. Victoria's face was pale and drawn, with dark circles under her eyes suggesting she hadn't been sleeping well. Her expensive clothes couldn't hide the fact that she looked genuinely terrified. Beside her sat a nervous-looking man in his 50s, who Elena assumed was her husband Robert, and a sharp-dressed lawyer who kept checking his watch. "Mrs. Chen," Victoria's lawyer began as soon as Elena and her legal team entered the room, "my clients deeply regret the incident that occurred on Saturday and are prepared to offer substantial compensation to resolve this matter quickly and quietly." Elena sat down directly across from Victoria, studying the woman who had humiliated her in public. Victoria couldn't meet her eyes and seemed to be fighting back tears. "Before we discuss any resolution," Elena said calmly, "I'd like to hear from Mrs. Ashworth herself. I want to understand why she thought it was acceptable to assault a stranger in public." Victoria finally looked up, her voice barely above a whisper. I was having a terrible day. I had just found out that morning that we might lose our house, and I was already upset when I went to return that necklace. When you broke the vase, I snapped. So you decided to take your financial stress out on me? I thought... Victoria stopped herself, realizing how her next words would sound. "You thought what?" Elena pressed gently. Victoria's composure cracked completely. "I thought you were just some regular person who wouldn't be able to do anything about it. I thought I could make myself feel better by making someone else feel worse." The honesty was brutal, but at least it was honest. Elena could see that Victoria was genuinely ashamed of her actions, but she also knew that shame wasn't enough to undo years of abusive behavior. "Mrs. Ashworth," Elena said, "I've spent the last few days reading about your interactions with service workers around the city. The mall incident wasn't an isolated moment of bad judgment. You have a pattern of treating people cruelly when you think they can't fight back." Robert Ashworth spoke for the first time, his voice strained. "My wife has been under tremendous stress with our business problems. That doesn't excuse what she did, but please understand that this isn't who she really is." Elena turned to him. "Mr. Ashworth, your hotels have been trying to secure contracts with Chen Industries for 2 years." "Did you know that?" Robert's face went white as he realized the full implications of what his wife had done. You're the CEO's wife. Oh my God, Victoria, do you realize what you've done? Victoria burst into tears. I've ruined everything, haven't I? Our business, our reputation, everything. Elena watched Victoria cry for a moment, feeling a complex mix of sympathy and frustration. This woman had caused real harm to innocent people, but she was also clearly suffering the consequences of her actions. Mrs. Ashworth, Elena said firmly but not unkindly, you're right that you've caused serious damage. But not just to your own life. You've spent years making service workers feel small and powerless. You've used your husband's money as a weapon to hurt people who were just trying to do their jobs. I know, Victoria sobbed. I know I've been terrible to people. I just felt so powerless in my own life that I wanted to feel powerful somewhere. Elena leaned forward. Here's what's going to happen. You have two choices. We can pursue full legal action, assault charges, civil lawsuit, and I can guarantee that your husband's business relationships in this city will never recover. Victoria and Robert both looked stricken. Or, Elena continued, you can accept responsibility for your actions in a way that actually helps the people you've been hurting. Victoria's lawyer looked suspicious. What exactly are you proposing? Elena slid a document across the table. First, Mrs. Ashworth will make a public apology video acknowledging her pattern of abusive behavior and committing to change. Second, she will complete 200 hours of community service working in roles where she serves others. Soup kitchens, homeless shelters, elder care facilities. Elena paused, making sure she had everyone's attention. Third, the Ashworth hotels will establish a fund of $50,000 to provide college scholarships for service industry workers in this city. Fourth, Mrs. Ashworth will attend anger management counseling and complete a course in workplace respect and dignity. The room was silent as everyone processed the terms. And fifth, Elena added, if Mrs. Ashworth ever again abuses a service worker or treats anyone the way she treated me, the original assault charges will be filed immediately, regardless of how much time has passed. Victoria looked up through her tears. You're giving me a chance to make things right? I'm giving you a chance to prove that you can learn from this mistake and become a better person. The question is whether you'll take it. Victoria nodded frantically. Yes, I'll do whatever it takes. I want to make this right. Elena stood up. Good, because this isn't just about what you did to me. This is about all the people you've hurt who didn't have the resources to fight back. They deserve better, and you're going to help make sure they get it. As Elena left the conference room, she felt a sense of satisfaction that had nothing to do with revenge. Victoria Ashworth was about to learn what it really meant to serve others instead of demanding to be served. The meeting was arranged for Wednesday afternoon at the law offices of Morrison, Blake & Associates. Elena had spent 3 days thinking about exactly what she wanted to say to Victoria Ashworth. The bruise on her face had faded to a yellowish mark, but the videos of the incident had been viewed millions of times across social media platforms. Elena arrived at the law office wearing a simple navy blue dress and minimal jewelry, wanting to look professional but not intimidating. She found Victoria Ashworth already seated in the conference room, looking nothing like the confident woman who had slapped her 4 days earlier. Victoria's face was pale and drawn, with dark circles under her eyes suggesting she hadn't been sleeping well. Her expensive clothes couldn't hide the fact that she looked genuinely terrified. Beside her sat a nervous-looking man in his 50s, who Elena assumed was her husband Robert, and a sharp-dressed lawyer who kept checking his watch. Mrs. Chen, Victoria's lawyer began as soon as Elena and her legal team entered the room. My clients deeply regret the incident that occurred on Saturday and are prepared to offer substantial compensation to resolve this matter quickly and quietly. Elena sat down directly across from Victoria, studying the woman who had humiliated her in public. Victoria couldn't meet her eyes and seemed to be fighting back tears. Before we discuss any resolution, Elena said calmly, I'd like to hear from Mrs. Ashworth herself. I want to understand why she thought it was acceptable to assault a stranger in public. Victoria finally looked up, her voice barely above a whisper. I was having a terrible day. I had just found out that morning that we might lose our house, and I was already upset when I went to return that necklace. When you broke the vase, I snapped. So you decided to take your financial stress out on me? I thought... Victoria stopped herself, realizing how her next words would sound. You thought what? Elena pressed gently. Victoria's composure cracked completely. I thought you were just some regular person who wouldn't be able to do anything about it. I thought I could make myself feel better by making someone else feel worse. The honesty was brutal, but at least it was honest. Elena could see that Victoria was genuinely ashamed of her actions, but she also knew that shame wasn't enough to undo years of abusive behavior. Mrs. Ashworth, Elena said, I've spent the last few days reading about your interactions with service workers around the city. The mall incident wasn't an isolated moment of bad judgment. You have a pattern of treating people cruelly when you think they can't fight back. Robert Ashworth spoke for the first time, his voice strained. My wife has been under tremendous stress with our business problems. That doesn't excuse what she did, but please understand that this isn't who she really is. Elena turned to him. Mr. Ashworth, your hotels have been trying to secure contracts with Chen Industries for 2 years. Did you know that? Robert's face went white as he realized the full implications of what his wife had done. You're the CEO's wife. Oh my God, Victoria, do you realize what you've done? Victoria burst into tears. I've ruined everything, haven't I? Our business, our reputation, everything. Elena watched Victoria cry for a moment, feeling a complex mix of sympathy and frustration. This woman had caused real harm to innocent people, but she was also clearly suffering the consequences of her actions. Mrs. Ashworth, Elena said firmly but not unkindly, you're right that you've caused serious damage. But not just to your own life. You've spent years making service workers feel small and powerless. You've used your husband's money as a weapon to hurt people who were just trying to do their jobs. I know, Victoria sobbed. I know I've been terrible to people. I just felt so powerless in my own life that I wanted to feel powerful somewhere. Elena leaned forward. Here's what's going to happen. You have 2 choices. We can pursue full legal action, assault charges, civil lawsuit, and I can guarantee that your husband's business relationships in this city will never recover. Victoria and Robert both looked stricken. Or, Elena continued, you can accept responsibility for your actions in a way that actually helps the people you've been hurting. Victoria's lawyer looked suspicious. What exactly are you proposing? Elena slid a document across the table. First, Mrs. Ashworth will make a public apology video acknowledging her pattern of abusive behavior and committing to change. Second, she will complete 200 hours of community service working in roles where she serves others. Soup kitchens, homeless shelters, elder care facilities. Elena paused, making sure she had everyone's attention. Third, the Ashworth hotels will establish a fund of $50,000 to provide college scholarships for service industry workers in this city. Fourth, Mrs. Ashworth will attend anger management counseling and complete a course in workplace respect and dignity. The room was silent as everyone processed the terms. And fifth, Elena added, if Mrs. Ashworth ever again abuses a service worker or treats anyone the way she treated me, the original assault charges will be filed immediately, regardless of how much time has passed. Victoria looked up through her tears. You're giving me a chance to make things right? I'm giving you a chance to prove that you can learn from this mistake and become a better person. The question is whether you'll take it. Victoria nodded frantically. Yes, I'll do whatever it takes. I want to make this right. Elena stood up. Good, because this isn't just about what you did to me. This is about all the people you've hurt who didn't have the resources to fight back. They deserve better, and you're going to help make sure they get it. As Elena left the conference room, she felt a sense of satisfaction that had nothing to do with revenge. Victoria Ashworth was about to learn what it really meant to serve others instead of demanding to be served. 1 year after the incident at Grandview Mall, Elena received an unexpected invitation in the mail. Victoria Ashworth was inviting her to a celebration at the downtown community center. The invitation was handwritten and simple, nothing like the expensive social events Elena usually received invitations to. Elena arrived at the community center on a Saturday evening, curious about what Victoria wanted to celebrate. The building was modest but warm, filled with people of all ages laughing and talking around tables decorated with simple flowers and homemade centerpieces. She spotted Victoria immediately, wearing a simple blue dress and moving through the crowd with an ease and genuine happiness that Elena had never seen in her before. Victoria was laughing with an elderly woman and helping a young man in a wheelchair get settled at a table. Elena, you came. Victoria approached with a bright smile, looking genuinely delighted to see her. I wasn't sure if you would, but I'm so glad you're here. What exactly are we celebrating? Elena asked, looking around at the diverse group of people filling the room. Victoria's eyes sparkled with pride. We're celebrating the first graduating class of the Ashworth Service Scholarship Program. 12 people are finishing their degrees this year, all funded by the program we started after. Well, after I learned my lesson about treating people with respect. Elena followed Victoria to a table where several young people were seated, all wearing graduation caps and gowns. Victoria introduced each one with obvious affection and detailed knowledge of their accomplishments. This is Maria Santos, Victoria said, placing her hand on the shoulder of a young woman beaming with pride. She just graduated from nursing school while working 2 jobs and raising her little daughter. And this is James Kim. He's our new elementary school teacher, and he's already changing lives in his classroom. Elena was impressed not just by the students' achievements, but by how much Victoria clearly knew and cared about each person's individual story. This wasn't just writing checks. Victoria had become personally invested in these people's success. Mrs. Chen, Maria Santos said, standing up to shake Elena's hand, Victoria told us all about how you changed her life. If it weren't for you giving her a chance to make things right instead of just destroying her, none of us would be here celebrating tonight. Elena felt emotional hearing this perspective. She had never thought of her decision in those terms, that choosing rehabilitation over pure punishment had created opportunities for all these other people too. The evening continued, with speeches from the scholarship recipients, each one thanking Victoria for believing in them and supporting their dreams. Elena noticed that Victoria teared up during every single speech, clearly moved by seeing the positive impact of her work. During dinner, Elena sat with Victoria and learned about how the past year had changed her perspective on everything. Victoria had completed all her community service requirements, but she had chosen to continue volunteering at the homeless shelter and the soup kitchen. She had also started working part-time at a nonprofit that helped low-income families access education resources. Elena, Victoria said quietly as they watched the scholarship recipients take photos with their families. I need you to know that slapping you was the worst thing I've ever done, but it was also the thing that saved my life. Elena looked at her curiously. Before that day, I was becoming a more bitter and cruel person every year. I was taking my unhappiness out on everyone around me, especially people who couldn't fight back. If you had just had me arrested and sued me, I might have learned to be more careful about who I attacked, but I wouldn't have learned to be a better person. Victoria paused, choosing her words carefully. By giving me the chance to serve others and see the world from their perspective, you didn't just punish me. You transformed me. And now I get to be part of transforming other people's lives too. Elena felt a deep satisfaction hearing this. Her instinct to choose restoration over revenge had created a ripple effect she never could have predicted. Victoria, I have a confession to make, Elena said. When I decided to offer you that alternative to legal action, I wasn't being entirely generous. I was angry and hurt, and part of me wanted you to suffer through all that community service. Victoria laughed. Elena, making me work in service jobs and volunteer at shelters was the best punishment you could have given me. It was also the best gift. I learned more about myself and about life in those 6 months than I had in the previous 40 years. As the evening wound down, Elena watched Victoria hugging each scholarship recipient goodbye, promising to stay in touch and continue supporting their educational journeys. The transformation was complete and genuine. The cruel, entitled woman from the mall had become someone who dedicated her time and energy to lifting others up. Walking to her car, Elena reflected on how a single moment of cruelty had ultimately created so much good. Victoria's public assault had been viewed by millions, but now her transformation was inspiring others too. Several other wealthy individuals had started similar scholarship programs after hearing Victoria's story. Elena realized that sometimes the most powerful response to being hurt wasn't to hurt back, but to create an opportunity for the person who hurt you to become someone better. Victoria Ashworth had slapped her in a moment of rage and entitlement, but she had spent the entire year since then learning to serve others with humility and grace. The slap had lasted seconds, but its positive consequences would last for generations through all the lives touched by Victoria's scholarship program and volunteer work. Elena smiled as she drove home, knowing that sometimes the best revenge was helping your enemy become a better person.